Testing, testing. Hey, what's going on, YouTube? It's your favorite wife guy here, Collective Dismal, and I'm coming to you with a late night video tonight. I just got off of work. This has become my favorite time to record these videos. That's when I'm peppy, I'm wired up, I'm social, I'm alert, because I've been involuntarily socializing with subhumans against my will. And most of the people that I deal with at work are subhumans, and most of the people that listen to my videos that I upload on YouTube are subhumans. So it only makes sense, I'm practicing, I'm training to bring these videos and deliver them to you. And I was gonna stop at the Goy Feed station on the way home from work. They didn't close for like another 12 minutes. I was gonna go in there and order a little plastic box of rice with chicken on it with that, the Turkish white sauce. They'll never tell you what's in it, but it's probably best that you don't know. But I wanted to come on and make a very quick, brief video. And I know I say that every single time I do these. I say they're going to be brief, and then they're like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, sometimes an hour. And that's with me trying to be like concise and just get it over with. Spit it out. Get to the point already. God fucking damn, just get it out. So I'm not going to torture you ADHD cells too badly with this. I want to talk about the greatest lie ever told. Okay? The greatest lie. We've been told a lot of lies, and many of them were quite great in their magnitude. And so for this to be the greatest, i.e. greater than all of the other great lies that you've been told, it must be quite the lie, and it was. We're going to get right into this. So the greatest lie ever told is that it costs $6 grillion to have a kid. And this is one of the kind of like propaganda, the propagandistic slogans that you would just hear repeated again and again throughout your time, and especially in primary school, probably into middle and high school too. I remember the teachers used to always float this figure out there. They always like randomly presented this factoid with almost no context. And then, of course, normies would just take it at face value and then go on to repeat it, spreading it around like a virus, a mind virus, right? They would say something like, did you know that from the time a child is born until they are, 18 or whatever, it will cost the parent like, I don't, maybe somebody in the comments who's relatively the same age as me will be also familiar with having heard this a lot, and they'll know the exact figure. But I remember it being astronomical. Like they would say it's like, $800,000 or something. Just, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, because I remember being so taken back by it. I'm like, listen, I'm no math prodigy here, all right? But that doesn't sound right. That just doesn't sound correct. Like, and I guess almost like the way they try to float the theory of evolution by natural selection, they just basically expand the scope of time to some like inconceivable duration, wherein you're like, yeah, I guess if things just move little by little by little, and then you just run the program for a gazillion years, I could conceive of that, right? I can conceive of like speciation and macroevolution, stuff like this, right? They try the same approach with this whole like, yeah, it's going to cost you like $6 million to have a kid and raise it. Because I'm like, my parents don't fucking make that or anything even close to that. And they want you to just sort of be like, well, over the course of 18 years, they actually do. Well, actually, your parents did spend that on you. And there's so many directions I could kind of go off in when I'm talking about this, but I never ever bought into the idea that it was anywhere near as expensive as what they said. But I never realized just how fucking cheap it is until I actually experienced this firsthand. So I was in a Telegram voice chat the other week there, and there was a Foyd in there, and she basically was grilling me about the fact that I'm like this pseudo neat who has a child, right? And I don't really push myself to try to make money. I'm not some guy that's gonna like go around and collect empty fucking pop bottles and pop cans and trade them in for like 3 cents a piece. I'm not doing stuff like that. And she said, at first it seemed like she was trying to boomer shame me to where like some people will say men just need to work hard and pursue like uh jobs or career success, whatever, just because that's manly and that's like you're in what do all the women say nowadays? Like they're in their masculinity when they're doing that, right? They won't even really present an argument. They'll just say like this is the essence of manhood and you are like outside the fold for not like participating in the male nature or whatever, which is to just like work hard for its own intrinsic sake, lack of external motivators be damned or whatever. And at first that's what it seemed like she was kind of doing to me, but then I pushed her back. I'm like, why are you trying to boomer shame me? It's like a very normie tactic. And she said, no, I'm not. If you are a single man, if you're like a single guy with no progeny, no codependence, whatever, then fine. Like, go be a pseudo neat, work your little 3 hours a week at the bowling alley and just like nope out of society, right? And whatever. Like, she said she's fine with that. But she said, but if you have a child, you're the father of a child, and you should 100% be getting after it. You got to be on that like David Goggins fucking, grind set, balls to the wall, like trying to make ends meet by whatever means necessary, right? If you can't get a job, like get a weed whacker and go door to door type shit, right? And I push back on this as well because when I questioned her, I said, what exactly do I need to buy for a child? And she was flabbergasted. She had nothing to say. And I couldn't think of anything either. I genuinely could not like produce an answer to that. What does a child need? Everything they need is either free or it's so fucking cheap that it's basically free. Okay, when you have a child, right? Pretty much like the first year, the first 5 years, the first 8 years of their life, right? Okay, so for the first initial period when they're a baby, they're an infant, they're just drinking breast milk. That's all they drink, and it's fucking free. The woman just produces it. There you go, right? So the food budget is $0 for the first, like, I don't know how long people breastfeed, a year, 2 years, whatever, right? The clothes, people will just give them to you, or else you just get them off Facebook Market, because a baby will literally wear something once, and then the next week it's too fucking big for it. So people just sell the shit for like pennies on the dollar, and it's literally brand new with the tags on it, like it's never been worn. People give stuff to people for babies. Baby showers, essentially gifts and presents that never gets worn. So it's basically free. Like, you don't even ever really pay full price for this stuff. They'll outgrow it at lightning speed. And then even when they get older, all they really need is physical activity and education. That's it. That's all you need. You just need to exercise the mind and you exercise the body. There's nothing else and all of this is free. Books are literally free. I know nobody who listens to me reads. I know you guys haven't read a book since you were fucking forced to do it in like 8th grade, but believe it or not, you can get basically any book in existence for free in PDF format on Google. So there's no lack of educational resources. There's actually an overabundance problem with access to like educational resources and literature, which warrants a video in and of itself. I'm not going to kind of go off on that tangent, but yeah, you can fucking train them. Kids run around, they play with stuff, they ride a bike, they, get them doing some physical activities, whatever, right? They play on the playground. That's it. So then where did we get this notion from that nobody ever seemed to question? Everybody holds it as true, but nobody ever stopped to question the basis of that belief or that commitment they have, right? This doxa. They just take it for granted until somebody actually kind of probes them, like, well, explain why it's so expensive to have a child. And I think all of the reasons is because of the standards that were set by boomers. Well, you gotta take your kid they gotta join a hockey team and they gotta travel around with $10,000 worth of equipment, hockey skates, they're gonna cost you 500 buckaroos, and you gotta take them to Disneyland. You got to take them to the water park. They need to go to the zoo. They need to go to like what my childhood was, right? You got to buy them fucking Lego fortresses. You got to take them to fucking you got to take them to indoor trampoline parks every weekend. You got to just like. And they genuinely feel like you're kind of depriving a child of like these essential and very important experiences if you don't, buy them like a skateboard every week and take them to Disney World 10 times before they're of age. And people will say, like, I'm almost kind of ungrateful because my parents did these things. They take you to Blockbuster every fucking day. You'd rent a video game and a movie. You didn't have to pick one or the other. They would take me all over the place, right? Like, unbelievably fun childhood. They would take us to go see monster trucks. They would take us to go see basketball games. Like, fuck, I went to WrestleMania, for fuck's sakes, when it was in Toronto. Like, I literally saw, like, Hulk Hogan and The Rock fucking wrestle. That's crazy shit, man. That is really crazy. Like, and I made a video in the past about almost how, like, it was almost cruel how nice the boomers were to us because of how abruptly all the niceties just dried up and we were like, all right, entertain yourself now. It's like, well, you just fucking blew out my dope receptors by taking me to a theme park every day of my fucking life for the last 10 years or whatever. Since before I even had a consciousness, I was already living like some kind of lavish lifestyle on your credit card. And then suddenly I turned like 15 and I wasn't cool anymore. And it's like, yeah, just go like entertain yourself. I don't know, go smoke weed or something. I would have rather just like have the bar set much lower and then had a kind of consistent expectation throughout my life. But I'll tell you right now, like that stuff's bollocks. You don't need to take your fucking kid to monster trucks. Maybe here and there, very, very sparsely. Nothing like the boomers did. And, you also realize too, you're like, well, if it costs $6 gazillion to raise a kid, how are all these poor fucks doing it? Like, how are all these extremely poor and impoverished families like reproducing nevertheless, in spite of this egregious cost? And this kind of leads me to what I wanted to close this video out on. Like, a lot of the reason why I even decided to have a child was that Western Decline, he kind of, was floating the idea on his live streams of that, you can impregnate somebody, even if they're not necessarily the best candidate for, a spouse or a partner. And you can try to remain in the picture. You can try to do the best that you can by the child. But if all goes to hell, worst possible case scenario, you get the child taken from you. You have no custody, no visitations. You have nothing, right? Number one, they can't take money from me. It doesn't exist. And if they put me in a jail cell, it's an objective upgrade in my standard of living. That's why they don't want to put people in jail anymore. Because literally I would have so much all I would do is sit around and study the Bible all day and do fucking push-ups and get yoked. That's what I want to do anyway. I don't want to go and deal with these N-word fests at my work. So they're not going to put you in jail. There's no money. You can't squeeze blood out of a rock. And, then that woman will be stuck raising your child as a single mother. It's going to basically stifle her SMV. Not completely, right? Because women's SMV never reaches absolute zero. But it's going to definitely put a damper on her, on what she can do. And your genes are secured. Even if you never see that child again, right? That's not ideal. You would like to actually be a father, because most men are virtuous, or at least most white men, they want to be fathers. They want to guide the decisions and the life outcomes of their children. Cultivate good ideas, foster good ideas and good, moral values and whatnot, instill them in their children. But even if all of that goes awry and shit hits the fan, the kid is never going to starve to death. Which for the overwhelming majority of our evolutionary history would have been a chief concern. If the dad isn't around, unless the village picks up the slack, which they were, historically rather unwilling to do. That's why bastards were made such a taboo, whereas nowadays they're not. Having a kid out of wedlock or whatever was very taboo for most of human history, because the tribe didn't want to foot the bill for a single mom. They couldn't afford it. They hadn't accrued all this excess abundance of resources and capital, etc., to kind of take the brunt of that type of parasitism. And so, but nowadays there's no taboo against it at all, and the child's not going to starve to death. They're not going to be famished or malnourished. So whatever, right? And I thought about that. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of a situation where you can't lose. And I went through on it, and I'm going to keep going through on that for as long as I'm able to, for as long as, I don't care about the cost of these things at all. Because I know I have faith that education will prevail, and that it'll be autodidactic. It won't be education that comes from an institution. It won't be, the grade 5 teacher that's millennial with the nose ring that is going to provide the education. It'll be me initially, and then hopefully, you teach people how to teach themselves, and then they become autodidactic. And then they're doing real learning, self-guided study. But I just want to highlight a comment that Western Decline had left on a recent video of mine. So I'm going to flip over to that. So he said here, just give me a moment to... He said, for many, the idea of successful parenting here is conceptualized as banal decisions like whether you bought hockey cards for them instead of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's interesting to think about the butterfly effect from seemingly benign decisions in life and what they can have. Life reminds me of a pinball machine where one wrong bounce can end your whole run. You can just get unlucky and have the ball bounce perfectly between the gap and the slapper arms. And I thought that was a really good analogy. That I'm glad I didn't make this video until he had left that comment, because it just sort of puts the cherry on top of what I'm saying. Like, these are more important than just having like brute finance. It's about kind of like never being that cringe parent. Being very attuned to what is popular amongst kids, your child's classmates, things like this. And not fighting your kids on it so much, and there's obviously limits to this. Like, if they want to get those stupid fake eyelashes or whatever, you fucking slap them over the head and knock that idea right out of them. But when it comes, especially for boys, like, this is not really even a worthwhile point for daughters or girls, because they're just going to socially fit in regardless. Even the ones that aren't popular are still popular. And so it's mostly to do with boys. If you end up having a son, if he needs like a PlayStation or something, don't get him the bike. He asked for the PlayStation. Just get the fucking PlayStation. Some things you do have to bite the bullet on. But yeah, I think the whole, having kids is so expensive. Don't do it until you can afford it, which is never. That's the whole point. They know you can never afford it. It's just part of the broader depopulation agenda. They knew that if everybody was like more low and hip about having kids, that we would run into the limits to growth, like the Club of Rome and Dennis Meadows and all these people talk about. We would run into a kind of a Malthusian limit. So they need people to be very apprehensive about having kids until they're able to afford it, which, again, is never. It's systematically designed such that you never have enough money to have a kid. And they're just hoping that white men will basically be so morally virtuous that they will forego reproduction because of economic reasons, not wanting to be selfish. They'll go extinct because they view reproduction for anyone that isn't wealthy as being rude, impolite. They'd rather go extinct than to be impolite. Think about that for a minute. And I'm going to talk about my brother. A few people have been asking about him. I'm not going to go in depth in this video about him because it would defeat the purpose. But when I last spoke to my brother, when I left his home and drove cross country, the last real exchange we had, he had done a lot in that month where I stayed with him. The worst month of my whole entire life where I stayed with him. He had done a lot to really offend me, insult me, antagonize me, needle me, everything, depress me, enrage me. But the one thing that he said that fucking pissed me off more than anything else was when he said, "You're about to have a baby that you can't afford, and you're going to put it all on mom and dad. You're going to put it all on mom and dad." Like that. That was what prompted me. I told him, I said, "Listen, dude, that's none of your fucking business. And it's probably better if you go for a walk around the block and let me pack my stuff. And I'll be gone by the time you get back. Because if you stay here in this house, you're going to say something, and I'm going to lose control of my response to that something. And I'm going to hit you. And if I hit you, you might not be getting up." That's what I told. This is the last thing I said to him. I said, "I'm genuinely concerned that this may occur, and I don't want it to. But if you say something like that to me again, I think I'm going to probably hit you, and you won't be getting up for a very long time. So let me just gather my stuff here, and I'm gone. I'm out of your hair, right? You're dead to me. I hope you fucking die of cirrhosis. I hope you die slow and alone. I hope you die in the most painful way. I hope your eyes fucking turn yellow and melt out of your fucking head. And I hope you die all alone in excruciating pain." Because he positioned himself as this big red pill guy, and eventually this big JQ guy, this big race realist who was, using N-words with hard R's on the end, which just a few years prior he had absolutely shunned me for doing. But now it was okay because he had seen the light. He was supposed to be this big guy, he'd seen the light and he is enlightened. It's his awakening to the truth of race realism and the JQ. And yet, even with all of that, he was such his mind was so infected with boomeristic Depop propaganda that the idea of me having a child without having, $250,000 in my savings account was just something to be scorned in the most scornful way, right? To the most extreme degree. Let alone the fact that you're going to rely on mom and dad. You're going to rely on mom and dad. Okay, first of all, we relied on our fucking parents to help us raise children for all of human fucking history until modernity and the cancer that is the individualistic nuclear family unit. And then the fucking kids look after the fucking elders when they get old, so they don't have to go get some fucking sheboon to shove a thermometer up their fucking anus in a fucking demeaning way while they sit in a hospital and burn through your fucking inheritance. That's the trade-off. They do the fucking babysitting, so you don't have to leave your kid for 8 hours with fucking Sharkeisha when she just smoked a blunt before she came in to watch 30 kids at the same time. The grandparents watch them, and then the old fucks, they get reliant on you, and then you watch the fucking... Everybody takes care of each other. What a horrible thing. Like most of what the boomers talk about, what they're factoring in, it costs $6 zillion to have a kid. Most of that's daycare money. Because these people are so individualistic, and their parents, the silent generation, were also so individualistic, they couldn't be arsed to watch their grandkids for free. They'd be like, they'd probably charge them. They'd probably send them a bill. I watched your fucking, I'll have you know that I watched my own grandkids for 20 hours this month, and I shouldn't have to do that. It's cutting into my me time. I want to watch my soaps. And they're bothering me. And my brother, through all his fucking racist awakenings and all his, coming around to my talking points, finally, after all these years of scowl at the mere mention of, eugenics or historical revision, is scowling at my points of views, calling me extreme, and he's still a Depop-tard at the end of the day. He's still an individualistic, you should never rely on your parents. What an evil imposition. What an evil imposition. Maybe if our parents didn't take us to Disneyland every fucking 2 days when we were growing up with money that they didn't fucking have, then maybe we could all live together, and maybe they wouldn't have to sell the house in the coming years, because we live in Jeet City now, and it's too expensive to retire. And I'd rather burn my house to the fucking ground before I would let a fucking Jeet family, bunk up in my childhood fucking bedroom. Just the lies we've been told are just so egregious. They're unbelievable. They're insane. They're so stupid. What did Orwell say? It's so stupid that only an incredibly intelligent person would be capable of believing it. It's like white people in general are just so stupid because they're the only ones smart enough to actually conceive of how these really dumb ideas might actually hold true. They're capable of higher order cognitive dissonance than the other races are. It's like a gift and a curse to be smart. So anyways, there's really nothing more to add. Got a couple more videos lined up. I'm going to just be knocking these out. That's so much to talk about. So little time. So little energy. Dismal days indeed.